Hi, cities. How are you doing? Welcome to Simnaya. Hope you all are great. Came across a video from a black big brother talking about our reparations and why is it that reparations are not being paid for to black people yet, right? And a lot of people also have something to say there. Some were asking, like black people should move on because they feel like they will not pay the reparations, and some people were like, oh, how will they calculate the reparations and all that? Some are saying there is no need paying black people. Why should people who never owned slaves pay reparations to people who were never slaves? This is always one of the gaslightings I get to hear from white people each time they talk about reparations. And not only white people, I have also brought video of an Asian woman asking why is it that it's only black people that they will pay reparations. Also have also seen Latino asking, will they also be paid reparations? They told them no, that they won't be paid. It's only for black people. They said if they will not be paid, there is no need paying for black people, that the money that they will use in paying for the reparation, they put it into so many things and all that. But if it, because like they were asked, she asked, will they also be paid? Immediately they said they won't be paid. That was when she switched. So it means if she would be paid, it means that, yeah, let them, or let everybody be paid too. But because they won't be paid, for that reason, black people should then be paid too. Let's get into this video.
You have any further doubt how racist and anti-black the United States of America is, just bring up the topic of reparations for black Americans, individuals who are descended from enslaved Africans. And all of a sudden, you're going to get a lot of hemming and hawing. Well, that's just not possible. That's too expensive. That was so long ago in the past. Black Americans need to move on. There you go. There are those blacks asking for a handout. Reparations must be paid by the federal government of the United States of America if this nation is to be anything other than fake bullshit. Even if this current smotsy regime is toppled, if reparations are not paid to black Americans by the federal government and many state governments, this nation will always be bullshit, because chattel slavery is one of the foundational sins of the United States of America. And all of this other shit that gets talked about in terms of what reparations mean to black Americans, I think is bullshit as well. I'm going to be quite frank with you. I agree with Nicole Hannah-Jones, who spearheaded the 1619 Project. In my book, Reparations for Black Americans would be in the form of direct cash payments, because anything else is still the United States of America exerting control over black people. We are grown. Pay us, period. Pay us cash money. And whatever we decide to do with it, that's our damn business. Well, black Americans, we're going to commission a study and we're going to see, fuck that. What this government needs to do is make direct cash payments to the descendants of the enslaved. Payment for a debt that is long overdue. For the people that say, ooh, you're asking for a handout. Black people always have their handout. Fuck you. It's payment for a debt for all of the labor that we went through for hundreds of years that built this nation into the economic power that it has been. Period. If you want to talk about handouts, then you go over to all of these white farmers that are begging for the government to bail them out yet again, because somehow white farmers were supposed to be guaranteed a livelihood. Again, if you want to see anti-blackness rear its ugly head, mention reparations for black Americans. All of these other so-called programs that they're calling reparations, that's not reparations in my book. Well, we're going to give black people mortgage down payment assistance, and we're going to give them job search assist. That's not reparations. Reparations is you getting a check Black American man, Black American woman from the federal government. And we know that the federal government can print money because just 5 years ago, the global pandemic happened and the United States federal government printed money to keep the citizens from completely going under, and everything rocked and rolled just fine. People took that assistance and they paid their bills to make sure that they had a roof over their head, a car, transportation, their health care, food, and everything else that they needed. But it was the Republicans that decided, well, people just don't want to work. And that ended that. This nation will always be bullshit until financial reparations in the form of direct cash payments are paid to Black Americans. And to the Black Americans who disagree with me, they say that it is a handout and they don't want it. Fine. Don't take it. I'll take your portion.
Let's talk about reparations. In response to my video calling for reparations of Black people, this guy responds, "This should have been done then. I didn't own slaves, and no one living was a slave." Let's address this. First of all, let's dismiss the asinine point that because there wasn't accountability then, there can't be accountability now. As long as the government is still around, accountability of that government is absolutely possible. The broader point is that this is not about reparations for people who are no longer alive. This is about your hatred for Black people. Because if we really did want to focus on people who are still living, we can pay reparations to Black people simply for the injustice committed against them during the Civil Rights era. And I'll give you one really good example. Houses. After World War II, there was a housing boom, and every American family wanted the American dream of a house. The Federal Housing Authority decided to give out loans to people, but only white people. They explicitly wrote into their contracts that these loans cannot go to Black people for any reason whatsoever. As a result, white families were able to purchase homes, and Black families were not. Home ownership is the #1 way to build generational wealth in America. Those homes that were then sold for about $10,000 are now worth about $500,000 or more. That's wealth and equity that allowed white families to start small businesses, pay for their kids' college tuition without student loans, or invest in new properties and make even more money. All things denied to Black families altogether, and the results have been devastating. According to numerous studies, Black median wealth has dropped by more than half in the last 40 years. Meanwhile, white wealth has increased 33%. But it gets even worse than this. The median Black family today owns only $3,600, just 2% of the wealth of the median white family. And yeah, it gets even worse than this. At this rate, the median white wealth will be $174,000 by 2050, and the median Black wealth will be only $600. Black wealth is projected to be 0 by 2082. This is what we mean by the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. But the scary part is this is not accidental, this is deliberate and systemic. This is why we also say that student debt is a racial justice issue. A study found that 2 decades after taking out their student loans, the median Black borrower still owed 95% of their debt, whereas the median white borrower paid off 94% of their debt. Multiply this across generations and across tens of millions of students, and you see the Black and white divide is becoming more and more stark every single day. And this is not some long ago conspiracy. This is contemporary reality. So if the argument really is that we can't pay reparations to slaves because nobody alive today is a slave, well, there are millions of Black people alive today who are suffering from these white supremacist policies, denied equal justice because of the US government's contemporary actions. And if you really want to put a number on it, at a bare minimum, $500,000 reparations to every Black person in America would be a good start. And that still does not absolve the US government from paying reparations for 400 years of slavery, genocide, and Jim Crow. Class dismissed.
Absolutely, I support reparations for the descendants of enslaved Africans in America. As a white man running for governor, I recognize the deep scars left by slavery and the ongoing systemic racism that continues to affect the Black communities. It's not just about acknowledging the past, it's about taking concrete steps to address the economic and social inequalities that persist today. As governor, I'll make it my mission to ensure that Black residents of West Virginia, especially those who are descendants of enslaved Americans, receive reparations. This is about justice, about making things right, about helping our state heal and move forward together. And let's take a cue from California. They're leading the charge with innovative approaches to reparations, setting up structures to determine eligibility and ensure fairness. We can learn from their example and tailor a program that fits West Virginia's unique needs and history. This isn't a formal policy speech. This is just me talking to you heart to heart. It's time for change, and I'm committed to being a part of that change. Let's work together to create a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. It's the least we can do, and it's long overdue.
Hello. I'm going to go ahead and assume that this question is not genuine solely based on the other comments that you have left. However, I would love, nonetheless, an opportunity to try to educate you or anyone else watching this who believes that paying reparations to Black people is somehow this grandiose, asinine idea. Firstly, your comment signals to me that you are not on an active anti-racism journey. Because if you were truly aware of just how deep the systematic racism is in the US and how Black people today can still be feeling the effects of slavery without ever having been enslaved, you would be angry. You would want to do something about it. And with that knowledge, you would absolutely be on board for reparations, no question. And I understand not being on board with reparations because there was a time when I wasn't on board with reparations. Several years ago, I would have acknowledged how egregious slavery was. I would have acknowledged that I have white privilege. I would have agreed that racism still exists and affects Black people today. But where I drew the line was reparations. My thinking back then was, why should I, as a white person who was never an enslaver, have to pay taxes or whatever the system would be to Black people today who were never enslaved? But the reason that I had that stance was out of sheer ignorance. It was because I was missing some very crucial pieces to the puzzle and couldn't see the whole picture. I wasn't educated enough on how deeply slavery has impacted generation after generation and is still impacting Black people today. And once I gained that knowledge, learning from Black people, might I add, something clicked and now I'm on board with reparations. Not so fun fact, did you know that DC enslavers got reparations after the emancipation? Yeah, $300 per person to offset their loss of enslaved peoples. So post-slavery, there were some white people getting paid, but not the Black people who were enslaved. Also, not so fun fact, did you know that white families have 10 times the amount of wealth as Black families? And that wealth gap is not because white people are smarter, it's not because white people work harder, and it's not because white people picked themselves up by their bootstraps and Black people didn't. It's because throughout history, white people and white families have been allowed to accrue wealth while Black people have been stripped of it. Reparations is a necessary and crucial piece of healing that is hundreds of years overdue. And not just for descendants of enslaved peoples, but for all of us.
To this sister's comment because she is spot on. She says we need to move on, but they are still gaining wealth from our ancestors' labor, our inventions, stolen land, money, as well as our creativity. She goes on to say they exist because of us. That's absolutely true. But that's the first thing that they tell us. We need to move on, but they won't let us move on. Let's take stock of some recent events, shall we? First of all, they are still harassing Kamala Harris. That woman is no longer in political office. She right now is a private citizen on book tour. They have all this smoke for her, none for the felon in chief and the fascists that have shut down the government. Several weeks ago, when that fascist was unalived, who was blamed for his unaliving? It was the campuses of historically Black colleges that received bomb threats. Black users on this app were threatened. And we had nothing to do with that. They are renaming military bases after Confederates. There are still many streets and businesses and institutions in this country named after Confederates, the ones who lost the Civil War. You don't see that in Germany. Schools and streets and parks and military bases named after Hitler and his regime. You don't see that. But here in the United States, you do. They still have plantations that are now vacation and resort destinations. They are obsessed with us. They're going to, again, the campuses of historically Black colleges, carrying on the legacy of that unalived fascist, trying to agitate our students. We don't go to their college campuses. We don't go to their houses of worship. when we are out in public minding our own black business, trying to work, trying to shop. We have to deal with racist aggressions. They won't let us move on until this nation acknowledges, accepts, and apologizes and takes accountability for chattel slavery and dispenses direct cash payments as reparations to Black Americans who are descended from the enslaved. This country will continue to crumble. This is a good comment that was left under my video about reparations for Black Americans by one of my mutuals. And I'm going to sum it up, but essentially she asked, how would the federal government calculate payment? Let's be understood. There is no way that the United States of America can ever fully repay Black Americans, not only for the crime of chattel slavery and the economic exploitation that was involved in that, but also the pain and suffering. There's not enough money in the world. That said, however, that does not absolve this nation from making restitution in the form of restorative justice by means of reparations. How could it be calculated? Well, I'm sure that there are people already working on that, but here's one way. Just set a baseline number for every Black American family to receive from the federal government. Now, in my hypothetical situation, let's just say that number is $5 million. Rod, $5 million for every Black American in this nation? That's not possible. Oh, yes, it is. And I'm going to give you two methods that the federal government could collect that money. Number one, go into the tax code and close every single loophole that high dollar worth individuals and corporations use to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. Let the IRS collect that money and then appropriate that money towards reparations to Black Americans. Number two, slash the bloated Defense Department budget. Those are just two ways right there. And we live in a nation whose wealth is unfathomable. Think about this. Elon Muskrat, spent $44 billion to purchase Twitter. And if he's not already, he is getting ready to be valued at $500 billion. Not $500 million, $500 billion with a T. $500 billion. That's just one individual. We're not talking about Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, Bloomberg, the Walton family, Tim Cook, Warren Buffett, and all of the other multi-billionaires that are American. And then let's add in the multi-billion dollar and multi-trillion dollar corporations that operate in this country. Oh yes, it is very possible to provide restorative justice. And Dr. King knew that. Once he helped achieve civil rights for us, he was getting ready to fight for economic justice, not only for we Black Americans, but for all poor people. That made him a very real danger. And he was assassinated shortly after he made plans to begin working towards that goal. But see, white supremacy and anti-Blackness has really done a number on folk, including many of us in the community. Because there's no other people who question their worthiness or this nation's ability to provide them economic restorative justice. You didn't hear Japanese Americans talk about how would the federal government pay us reparations for interring us during World War II. No, they got their reparations. And many indigenous tribes received reparations as well. Hell, even after the Civil War, enslavers received reparations. But when it comes to Black people, our worthiness is always questioned. Why should Black Americans get a handout? Well, it's not a fucking handout. It is for wages that are due. Long past due. We deserve it, and this nation again would not be shit until it does exactly that. pay us financial reparations and also grant us tax-free and tax-exempt status as well to make up for all of the years that corporations and nonprofits like churches have enjoyed that status. They can grant that to us as well. Think about how that would level the playing field in our community if each of us had an additional $5 million in the bank right now. But it is because of anti-blackness and racism that that has not been done. But no, it wouldn't bankrupt this nation to pay us, Black Americans, reparations in the form of direct cash payments.
This is all I got from this video, and let me tell you something. Because reparation is something that we've been talking for so long. It's nothing new, right? And you all know how much I am very much invested when it comes to reparations. I like to talk about it. I say because it's what Black people deserve. And you know, it is only when you talk about reparations for Black people that you get to hear people gaslighting you that you know, that they never owned slave and they know nothing about slave and all that. Slavery was long time ago. Get over it. And also, when you get to ask other people like Asians and Latinos, the first thing you will hear is, will they also be paid the same reparations? And then you tell them no, and they're like, so why do you have to waste money? So it's a waste of money when you pay only Black people, but not a waste of money when they are also included. That is how selfish some people are. Like Rod Faulkner said, he said that it is because of anti-Blackness that reparations has not been said, and that is absolutely true. Because some people will size you and ask, why do we need to pay them, these people? Because when anything that comes to that gets to Black people, you all know how it goes. They will have to look at you very well and like, oh no. Why? Because they are in competition with Black people. Other people already got their reparations, but why is it that when it comes to Black people, it becomes a tough or a tug of war? Black people deserve reparations, and reparations should be paid to them. The fact that they would say this should have been done then, I didn't own slave and no one living was a slave. That is how disgusting some people's attitude are, right? They should have paid it then. Now they didn't pay it then. You all are still benefiting from those things they worked, they did, their labor. Their labor are the things that people that are living today are still enjoying. And you all took away so many generational wealth from Black people. Why is it that you all are not trying to pay them back? That's why I love Kendrick Lamar. The land that was promised them, what happened? Why has it not been given to them, you know? And the fact that some of them, like, you know, it's always a constant. Why is it that people that never owned a slave will have to pay for? You guys will have to, whether you own or you do not own, you guys will have to pay for reparations. Why? Because you all are still enjoying the fruits of their labor. Yeah. And some people are asking, how is that going to be calculated? Of course, United States know how that, know how that will be calculated. Some people will tell you Black people are not looking for handouts. When you ask for what you are own, it's not a handout. But for those that said, like he said, like Big Brother said, those that said that they will not collect it, he will collect it on you guys' behalf, or just send me to go and collect it, because I know almost all of you would collect the money. Some are saying, I don't need it. Who said you do not need the money? And some are like, well, if they pay you the reparations, you're going to pay them the reparations. Let them use it for what they want. When you give somebody what you owe them, what they will do with the money got nothing to do with you. I will draw the court in here. Bye for now.